Hi, my name is Sally, and today I'm here to share with you my experience of Vipassana meditation and everything you need to know about it. So if you don't already know what Vipassana is, it's a silent meditation technique, and there are centres all over the world where you can go for a few days or even longer. I believe that you can go from 3 days all the way up to 10 days, 21 days, and I met somebody who did 60 days in India. So it really depends on the centre in terms of what they offer lengthwise, but I did a 10-day Vipassana meditation in Thailand, in Chiang Mai, in August 2024. And I'm here to share that experience with you so that you know what to expect if you're thinking about taking this journey yourself. Different centres have different approaches to the silent meditation retreat. In some of them, you are seated for the entire time. So you'd be seated for up to 10, 12 hours a day doing a silent meditation. In the centre that I chose, there was a rotation of different types of silent meditation. So we practiced standing meditation, seated meditation, lying down meditation, and walking meditation. One of the things that I was worried about doing a Vipassana meditation retreat was being seated in meditation for up to 10 hours a day for 10 days and the impact that that might have on your body, on your physical vessel, and the pain that you might encounter. So when I chose the place that I ended up at, I was quite relieved to find out when I got there that there was a rotation of meditation techniques. So you didn't have to be seated all day every day. You could do a mix of seated, standing, lying down, and walking meditation. My motivation for doing the Vipassana meditation retreat was I'd been meditating for quite a few years by this point. I've had a daily meditation practice for a number of years, probably since around anywhere between 2018 and 2020 was when I started to really meditate daily and take it more seriously. So I really wanted to deepen my meditation practice and my understanding of meditation, and also to connect within. I've also been on a healing journey, so I wanted to continue that process of healing and releasing things that no longer serve, dense energies, and also connect with the divine. So they were my motivations. And at the point in time where I started the 10-day meditation in Thailand, I was actually going through a pretty rough time in my life and I was really struggling. So I checked myself in as spiritual rehab, and it was the best thing that I could have done. I absolutely loved it. I was quite scared going in and didn't think I'd enjoy it. I thought that I'd find it really challenging and really hard, and it was challenging and it was hard in some ways, but I actually found it a lot easier than I thought I would. But I have had a daily practice of various different spiritual things for a number of years, whether it be meditation, mantra, sometimes yoga, ceremony, light language, Reiki, and I have really been quite deep in it for quite a few years now. So I did think, actually, I'm glad that I've done this when I have, and I think that potentially, obviously it's different for everybody, but I might have found it a lot more difficult if I was new to those practices, if I didn't have any experience of meditation under my belt, and if I was a first timer. There was another part of me that thought, actually, I would have loved to have done this at the beginning of my meditation journey, because it helped to really go deep with a particular type of meditation technique, and it showed me how to practice it in a variety of ways, and really my mind was blown by the impact that it had on my life and the impact it had on my nervous system. And I'll talk a little bit later in the video about some of the things that I took away from the experience. And the place that I did it in was in the mountains in Chiang Mai. It was absolutely beautiful. The name of the centre that I chose, I cannot pronounce it properly. I doubt I can pronounce it properly, but it was called Wat Pra That Do Satep. That was further up in Chiang Mai, in the mountain there and in the jungle, surrounded by jungle. It was a really beautiful place. I think I was actually really, really lucky with the place that I ended up at, because I didn't do an awful lot of research, to be honest. I just rocked up. There were 2 centres that I was potentially interested in going to. There was one of them in Chiang Mai, which is the one that I ended up going to. There was another one further north in Thailand, in an area that I can't think of what the name is right now. And they were the 2 that I was toying between. I ended up going to the one in Chiang Mai in the end, and I'm really, really glad that I did, because I absolutely loved it there. The surroundings were beautiful, the sound of the jungle was amazing. I was there in monsoon season, so it did rain a lot. It rained every day, but I actually really loved the rain. Moving between buildings in absolute downpours, I absolutely loved it. So yeah, it was a very, very special time for me, and I just adored the experience and highly recommend it to everyone. Please do subscribe. It really helps me to know that the content that I'm creating is valuable and helping people and informing people. And it helps me to create more content like this to serve you. And if you want to support my work, you can join the Unfolding membership. It's super accessible. It was guided by Spirit during Vipassana, and it's only £5.50 a month. You can access it in many countries and can pay in your local currency. I would love to join you on there and have your support and connect to you during a live ceremony. So the daily routine, the daily structure, you can see it here. And yeah, it was quite intense. It was intense, but it also wasn't. I actually really thrive on those routines and structures. I'd done my yoga teacher training earlier that year, and I really loved the routine. It was challenging physically, much more challenging physically, the yoga teacher training, that was 21 days in India. But I actually really love having a routine like this and living that type of monastic life, I guess. It's a little flavour of monastic life. It really suits me. Just to go through this day, and this is what you would be doing on a day-to-day basis. So on the first day and the last day, you have a little bit of a different schedule. You arrive in the afternoon, and they begin at about 2:30 in the afternoon with a demonstration of the meditation and the meditation technique. And then they do an opening ceremony, which was really beautiful, to welcome you into the space and to bless you for the journey ahead. At 6 o'clock in the evening, you join the rest of the people who are there. Everybody joins in the meditation hall to do evening chanting. And then at 7 p.m, there's an evening meditation, and you're free to do the meditations either in the meditation hall. There's various spaces across the site, but you can do the meditations in the meditation hall, or you can do them alone in your bedroom. And then at 9 o'clock at night, the day ends. Then for every other day throughout your stay, you do the same schedule, the same routine every day. So you wake up at 5 a.m, that's when the day begins. At 5:30 a.m, you have a Dharma talk, which is run by the monk there who leads the Vipassana. At 7 a.m, you have breakfast. At 8 a.m, there's a morning meditation. At 11 a.m, you have lunch. After lunch at 11:30 a.m, you have an opportunity to have a chat with the monk about the meditation, about any experiences, any questions you have to ask, and they build it up over time. They start by teaching you a basic kind of stripped down version of the meditation, and then each day over time, depending on how you're getting on, they add new bits to the meditation for you to practice while you're there. So the whole time that you're there, you're building up the meditation practice and practicing different things as time goes on. After the chat with the meditation teacher, you have more meditation. So you have afternoon meditation that starts at 12:30 and it runs all the way into the evening. And then at 6 o'clock, you have the evening chanting, which was my favourite part. Now the chanting was in Pali and it was just beautiful. I really, really enjoyed it. Everybody gathers together in the meditation hall. You have a printout copy of the chants, and it's quite long. It goes on for quite a long time. It's quite difficult chanting in Pali, but I absolutely adored that part of the day. It was always my favourite part of the day. I absolutely love mantra, I love chanting, I love all of that stuff, so I really, really looked forward to that part of the day each day. That goes on until 7 o'clock when you have the evening meditation, and that takes you until 9 o'clock at night, and that's when the day ends. So you'll notice that you're not eating anything after midday. So you have lunch at 11 a.m. and then that's your last meal of the day. So you're also fasting for breakfast and for lunch. You can really fill yourself up. If there's leftovers, you can go back and have more. So I ensured that I was really filling myself up and eating enough each morning and afternoon. When I was there was herbal tea that you could have throughout the day. You could access and have herbal tea and have cups of tea for the entire day. So that was something that I really appreciated and something that I always enjoyed doing. On the last day, you start the day at 5 a.m. At 5:30 a.m. you have a Dharma talk, and then you follow breakfast as usual. But then after breakfast at 8 a.m. you have a closing ceremony with the monk and with anybody else who is leaving that day. And people at that centre, they come in rotation, so you don't start with everybody and end with everybody. There's people coming and going all the time because some people are doing different length Vipassanas than others. So while you're there, you'll kind of see people coming and going. It's not a centre where everybody starts on a particular day as a group and then ends on a particular day. I actually quite liked the coming and going element of it as well. And at 9 a.m. on the last day, you'll check out and say goodbye and have an opportunity to give a donation and pay for the experience. And it is run on a donation basis, so it's paying what you can afford, and all of the meals and food, everything is provided by the monastery and the local people who support that monastery. So it's a really beautiful experience, and I think that another really special, beautiful thing about it is knowing that the food that you're eating each day is being donated, that people are offering their food and their time to make these delicious meals to support your journey there as you undertake this deep spiritual practice and connection to self. So anything in between lunches, breakfasts, chanting, all of the time in between that is filled with meditation, and you can do the meditation in the meditation halls, you can do it outside, or you can do it in your own room. And at that centre you also get your own room, which I thought was fantastic and brilliant. I think at some centres you share a room with people. For me personally, when I'm practicing deep meditation like that, I can have quite a lot of releases, emotional releases, usually emotional releases. There can be tears coming up and things flowing. So I really appreciated having my own private space in which to practice. So a little bit more about the practice. Obviously, I'm not going to go into the entire practice and everything that I learned while I was there. It was 10 days of doing it all day every day, so it's too much to talk about in one video. But you begin really simply and you just watch the breath rising and falling. So you would be in seated meditation, for example, and your one pointed focus is the breath and as it rises and falls in the body. So you would kind of have a little mental dialogue going, saying rising, falling, sitting, rising, falling, sitting, or rising, falling, standing, rising, falling, standing, rising, falling, lying down, rising, falling, lying down. And when you notice that the mind gets distracted by something else, so whether it's a physical sensation in the body or whether it's the mind wandering off, you would notice that if it's a strong wave, and you would bring it back. So you would name it 3 times and then bring it back. So for example, if it was a pain in the leg, you might say pain, 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 and then return to rising, falling, sitting, rising, falling, sitting. Or if it was the mind going off and thinking and wandering away, you would say thinking, 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 and then return to rising, falling, sitting, rising, falling, sitting. During the Vipassana, another massive thing that I really started to notice was just how much rubbish there is in the mind and how much your thoughts are actually just pointless, and how we end up getting like pulled into them and pulled into our thinking and take it so seriously a lot of the time, but actually a lot of it is just bullshit. Something that I really noticed was when you're watching your thoughts for a long time, all day, every day, is I started to be able to notice and really attune to the point where my thoughts would start to switch from my normal waking thoughts, and they'd start to get more dreamy because I was starting to feel tired. So my dreamy, absurd thoughts would come in, and the dreamy thoughts, when they begin to come in and you're watching them, they're more abstract, they're more disjointed, they're kind of more like they don't make sense, they're nonsensical. And I really noticed how when those thoughts started to come in, those abstract, dreamy thoughts, I wasn't paying any attention to them. I was, quite easily just brush them off and thought, it's just a dreamy thought. But then that really made me notice, okay, then why am I paying so much attention to all of the rest of the mental chatter that just goes on and on and on all day, every day? And it also makes you realise how so many of the thoughts that we have are just looping, and they're just trying to get your attention, and they don't really mean anything. There isn't a lot behind them. And how once the mind is looped on a particular thought for a while, it kind of gives up, and then a new random thought comes in, and it just cycles with these various thoughts. And over time, as you're doing the Vipassana, those thoughts begin to dissipate, and you just have more clarity and more centeredness and more peace in the mind, and it feels blissful. It was just wonderful, and I really felt that if everybody in the world, if every human did one 10-day Vipassana, we would live in a very, very different world. As you continue at the centre and do more days, additional layers get added on, and you rotate the one-pointed focus around various parts of the body. So yeah, it rotates around various areas of the body. It goes into quite a lot of depth, so it's too much to talk about and share on this video, but it's a really beautiful technique, and I still practice it, and I absolutely loved it, and I had some very interesting experiences doing it. So there are some other rules while you're there. You are not meant to make eye contact or smile or communicate with any of the other meditators, to practice noble silence. You're not meant to practice any other practices. They encourage you not to practice yoga or do any other types of chanting or any other types of practices. You are encouraged not to access anything, so you're not using your phone, you're not on your laptop, even things like reading, journaling, all of those things you're discouraged from doing, so that your entire focus, your entire attention is on the meditation practice. So that was something that actually surprised me, that we weren't even able to read books around Buddhism or like learn information or reading while you're there. That was the one that surprised me. But yeah, they discourage you from anything, from all external stimuli. It's to really focus yourself and your attention and your concentration inwards to get the most out of the practice. So the challenges of doing that, everyone will have different challenges, I'm sure, when they're practicing it. One of my biggest challenges was actually sleep, and I didn't sleep very well and found that I would get frustrated by that sometimes. It was an interesting thing actually, because earlier that year I'd done my yoga teacher training in India, and the yoga teachers there had told me about how yogis who practice and have a really disciplined practice, how after a certain point, because you're receiving prana, life force, all the time, you actually don't need to sleep as much, you don't need to eat as much, because everything that you need is provided by prana. And when they told me that, I didn't believe it. I just didn't believe what they were telling me, really. I just thought it was, I didn't think it was true. But when I was doing the Vipassana 10 days, I realised that actually I think there is something in it, and it is true, because when you are doing that length of meditation, doing the meditation all day, every day, I did find that I was just felt energized a lot of the time. I was unable to sleep a lot of the time. I didn't feel tired. I still felt awake. So I would just practice the meditation into the night. I did find that challenging. I wanted to sleep. I wanted to go to sleep and wake up in the morning, especially because there wasn't anything else to do. I was like, oh, I don't want to do more meditation while I'm meant to be sleeping. I want to sleep and then wake up in the morning. But most nights I would be awake for the majority of the night and would just continue practicing the lying down meditation for the majority of the night until I drifted into sleep. So yeah, I learned that way that actually I think the prana thing is true. I learned through experience that I think it's true, and I didn't feel hungry during it either. I didn't find the fasting element difficult at all. And I'm kind of assuming that that's because I was being fed by prana. And yeah, like even when I returned home, I found that I was just naturally waking up a lot earlier and just felt naturally more energized. And yeah, I really do believe that the prana thing is true, that the more you meditate, the more you practice yoga, the more you do any of those practices that encourages the flow of prana in the body, you actually just naturally don't need to eat as much, don't need to sleep as much, are more energized. Based on what I experienced, I just do believe that that is true. Other challenges, I think for me, was mosquitoes and being bitten by mosquitoes. Mosquitoes do seem to really like the smell of my blood, so I would find that a bit frustrating. There are mosquito nets in the room, so I didn't really find that I would get attacked by mosquitoes in my room, in my own space, but there were sometimes mosquitoes in the meditation halls and obviously outside, and I did sometimes like to go and sit outside and just absorb the jungle and the view, which was beautiful. And yeah, sit out there on the balcony. I enjoyed meditating out there. However, I did get gnawed by the mosquitoes. Another challenge for me was I actually came onto my period, my bleed, early on during the Vipassana meditation, and every day you also have to wear all white. I had bought some additional clothes before I went, so I had white to wear. I found that early on I actually bled through the tampons that I was using, the pads that I was using, so I had period stains on the clothes that I had. I continued to bleed through the majority of the clothes that I had on the first few days. Thankfully, people had donated some clothes, additional white clothes that I could use that had been left there kindly by some other meditators. And thankfully there were also some additional sanitary products, because I also realised that I didn't have enough. Coming on my bleed took me by surprise, so I was really, really grateful for the person or people who left those sanitary products. At one point I did have to write a little note and put it into the shared donation area to ask if anybody had any additional sanitary products, and people did donate more, which I was so grateful for. But yeah, that was a challenge for me, because I was always conscious that on some of the clothes I was wearing you could see the stains, and I didn't have any other clothes that were white to change into because I ran out. So each day, whenever that happened, I was hand washing and spent quite a bit of time hand washing the white clothes that I had to get the stains out, and then leaving them to dry. But because it was monsoon season and it was raining a lot of the time and really, really high humidity, they didn't really dry that quickly. They took a long time to dry. So yeah, that was something that I was not anticipating at all, and that happened. I kind of took it as, okay, let's just go with this, and it was an opportunity for me to try and face head on any shame with that experience or anything that I might feel embarrassed about around that. I just took it as, you know what, it's happened, there's nothing I can do about it, there's nothing to be ashamed about, it is just a natural process and it's out of my control. So I kind of took it into the practice, but it was definitely a challenge for me. There were some things that I found quite funny about it, so I laughed my way through quite a lot of the Vipassana, which maybe, I don't know if that's cheating or not, but I just kept finding things funny. So whenever I was eating in the hall for breakfast or lunch, I would kind of look around and everybody just looked so sick of their life. Everybody just looked so, just sick of their lives. And I know that part of the practice is, to kind of like keep concentration and be mindful about what you're eating and keep your awareness and concentration, but I just, every time I looked around and just saw how miserable everybody looked, it just really tickled me. So I found that really hilarious. I also found other little things to find funny. There was a lizard that lived in the dining area, and sometimes the lizard would be in the bin and I'd go and put something in the bin, and lizards being lizards, it would freak out and run away really quickly. So I nicknamed that lizard Bin Lizzie. Yes. And I always loved seeing Bin Lizzie, and that was another thing that really cheered me up if I was finding things challenging or just brightened up my day. On one of the days while we were there, they had a ceremony. I can't remember exactly what day it was, but I think it was either a new moon or a full moon, and the monks invited us up to the main temple complex to be part of that ceremony that the monks were doing, and that was a really, really beautiful experience, and it was really interesting to see how it all happened. And we also joined them walking around the temple a few times with different offerings and flowers and just with such beautiful smells. So that was another highlight of the 10 days while I was there. A very strange thing happened while I was doing Vipassana, and that was that I actually laid an egg. I say that I laid an egg, but yeah, something actually came out of my body. I'm assuming that it was something like a health thing maybe, and that I literally meditated it out of my body. So sorry for anybody who might be squeamish about this, but one day I actually, like, something came out of my vagina while I went to the toilet, and it was kind of like, it was about this size, and it was white, but it was like hard. I don't know if it was like a cyst, an ovarian cyst or something like that. So yeah, it was like hard. You couldn't pull it apart or anything like that. It was quite firm and it was quite big, and that just randomly popped out of my body one day, and I was like, wow, the power of meditation is nuts. It literally made me lay an egg. When I got home and described it to a friend of mine, she said that it sounded like maybe it was a cyst or something like that. It would have been cool to keep it and find out what it was, but obviously hygiene, and that would have been gross, so I decided not to do that. I also experienced during Vipassana quite a lot of emotions arising, stuff from childhood that felt like it was completed or released from my body. I had somatic releases, and I also sometimes had things that I felt were downloads from spirit, or a connection to the divine, or being told certain things around my life. One of those things that I was guided to do was to start an online membership. I was guided that it needed to be £5 a month, and that I was to share wisdom and some of the practices that I do that have helped me. So I have done that now. It's called the Unfolding, and I would absolutely love for you to be a part of it. We do one monthly online ceremony where I share Reiki, sound healing, light language, and any channeled messages that I get. Sometimes we do journaling prompts. We're very early on, so it'd be amazing to have you involved from the beginning. And the first ceremony that we did was all around transformation and shedding old skin and planting seeds of intention for the coming kind of cycle, the coming year that we're edging towards. And I'm being guided that the next ceremony will be all around purpose and feeling into purpose. You can catch up on the ceremonies if you miss them. We'll be doing them live each month, and it's a wonderful way to receive energy medicine and connect with yourself and go deeper with your spiritual journey and connect with the divine. I absolutely am so excited about it, and I would love to connect with you on there. It's also a wonderful way, if you're not bothered about the ceremonies but enjoy the content that I create, it's a wonderful way for you to support that work, and I would be really, really grateful to have your support. It always means a lot. So life after Vipassana, weirdly, and it's weird because I can talk quite a lot, I just did not want to talk after I came out. I came out and I felt amazing. I just felt amazing, and I just did not want to talk at all, and I just was so much more aware of the energy that we use by speaking, by making gestures to people. I was just more highly attuned to the energy that little things like talking and eye contact and things like that, what it uses up, and how unnecessary a lot of it is. It was a very strange thing to experience. Another thing that I noticed when I got back to normal life afterwards is that it did something to my nervous system, and situations that I would have used to have been in that would really make me feel flappy, and I'd get into a stress and a panic. They just did not have that effect on us anymore. I just didn't have any sort of flappy reaction to things. So a really good example, maybe a bit dangerous, but a really great example is that, like, if I was driving and if something happened while I was driving that stressed me out, like, I would get quite panicky about it. I'd feel my heartbeat racing and, feel stressed, and also sometimes feel a bit embarrassed and like, oh, people are watching me and I've made this mistake. And I went through a little phase where I kept accidentally, it only happened twice, it wasn't really a phase, but it happened twice when I'd just fresh got back out of Vipassana and gotten home, is that I ended up driving down a one-way street, and one of them was quite a busy, dangerous one-way street in Newcastle, and obviously when you do that, other cars are kind of beeping to like alert you to the fact that you're driving down a one-way street. And each time it happened, I was just cool as a cucumber. I just noticed what I'd done and then just calmly found a way to turn myself around and to just correct the situation. Whereas previously that would have freaked me out and I would have felt embarrassed, I would have gone red, I would have had my mind racing, I would have had like a physical response to that and gotten really stressed out, but I was just so much more chill. And also when I got back, I ended up doing a little bit of bar work for a short period of time, and that's a similar situation where it would have used to have sent me into a flap if it was busy, if there was lots of customers to serve, and I'm, you know, new to it, not quite sure what I'm doing, and a busy, tight little bar as well to navigate around. And again, I just found that I had this just peace and this sense of unflappableness. It was really strange. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. And to the point where somebody even commented on it and said, Sally, you seem like a pretty unflappable person. And I was like, I'll take that, but it's only because of the Vipassana meditation, because prior to doing Vipassana, I was definitely like an extremely flappable person. Some of the effect of that has worn off a bit now, and I have had a few flappy moments this year. So I kind of think if you keep topping it up, if you kept topping it up, eventually you would just become entirely unflappable. And that's another thing that I just found amazing. Other things that I noticed after I'd finished it, one of them was quite difficult, and I think that the integration process actually takes a really long time. In some ways I still feel like I'm integrating the experience more than a year later, just because it goes so deep and changes your perspective on things so much, is that I really started to feel like I could see trauma dynamics and ego dynamics between people during interactions. And I found that quite hard to witness. It's something that's quite hard to describe, but I could really see when their defences went up energetically, or when they're switched into being, you know, kind of their centred, balanced, true, or like authentic, loving, pure, innocent, gorgeous, soul-led, heart-led self, into being triggered by something. And I could see the energetic defences going up, or see them reverting into inner child response or inner teenager response, and how that interaction would then cause conflict, or how it would pan out. And I could also see behind like masks that people would wear, if people were being inauthentic or were being led by ego. I could really see it, and it was really quite stark. It was seeing it more starkly than ever before, and I found that quite challenging, because it's something that I felt was quite an isolating experience, because I didn't really know of, or you know, it was something that was new, and I didn't really know anybody else who'd had that experience of seeing the world in one way, and then quite quickly beginning to see energy dynamics in a different way. And yeah, it just took a long time. I kind of went through a bit of a phase, I guess, of grief, of feeling like the world, so much in our world, and so much of people's intentions around things, and I think a lot of them are unconscious, but so much of it is actually led by trauma and ego and all of these things. And I found that really quite difficult to witness, and I found it quite sad to see. I found it really sad to see it, because I kind of saw it as people not being free, that people aren't free, but they're also not conscious of the fact that they're not free, that they're operating from this ego, or whatever you want to call it, from trauma, and that's having an impact on their decision making, on their life choices, on their interactions with people, on every single thing around them and in their lives. And I found it really quite sad to just witness and see that dynamic was going on, and that it went so deep. I found it really quite sad, because it just made me feel like so many of us are chained by the unconscious and experiences that we've had in our past that are dictating our future without awareness and our interactions. So yeah, that was something that I found really quite hard, and it's still something that I'm finding hard. Another thing that was challenging post Vipassana was kind of realising that certain relationships in my life, certain dynamics, maybe weren't feeling okay anymore. That the ways in which certain people might treat me or interact with me were no longer acceptable, and I found that quite difficult again. It was a similar kind of flavour of like noticing trauma dynamics in relationships, and I believe that I kind of started to have firmer boundaries with people after that experience of Vipassana. But practicing that and actually doing it, and I guess having that shift in myself and the way that I responded to certain situations or people in my life was challenging, because there's been certain relationships that I've divested from or let go of since the experience of Vipassana. Maybe one day those people will come back into my life, perhaps, but it was a difficult process for me to kind of let go of some of those relationships. And post Vipassana as well, I continued to very often wake up at like 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning for quite a long time, which was wonderful in many ways. And it meant that I could start my meditation practice in the day much earlier. And oh my gosh, you manage to get so much done with your day when your day is, you've got all of these additional hours and you've still got energy. It was a beautiful gift in many ways, but some days I found that quite hard. I would be like waking up at 3 in the morning just naturally, and I would hear my guidance just say the word meditate, and there was quite, it would wake me up at that time and say meditate, and there was definitely a big part of me that was like, no, I don't want to meditate at 3 a.m. in the morning, please let me sleep for longer. And that went on for quite a long time, and it still does sometimes happen. I'm starting to embrace it more, and I actually really enjoy getting up earlier in the day, but sometimes you just do want to have a nice sleep in. Another thing post Vipassana has been just continuing with that meditation practice and fitting it into my daily life, and it's something that I really do still practice. I still chant, not all of the chants, but some of the chants. There's one in particular that I absolutely love, so I still practice chanting that sometimes, not every day, but some days I do when I feel called to chant it. And just continuing to ensure that it's a part of my life. It's something that I also practice if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm having a challenging time in life, just to come into presence and using that meditation technique in my day-to-day. So like naming what I'm doing. So for instance, if when I was travelling, I was getting anxious about stray dogs and they were barking at me, and I used that technique in order to try and come back into presence and to not run away with all of the anxious thoughts around what the dogs were going to do and catastrophizing. So I would just focus on walking and just say, in my mind, I would be saying walking, 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 or rising, falling, walking, rising, falling, walking, and just try and follow my breath. And that's been a real anchor in my day-to-day life, and has definitely helped when I'm feeling challenged by life or feeling anxious or any of those things. It has been a really beautiful medicine, and I'm so grateful for being introduced to it and for the experience, and to all of the wonderful monks at that centre who share their amazing wisdom with others. So do I have any tips or advice if you are planning on your own Vipassana journey? I know that some people will want to have the hardcore seated meditation all day every day approach, but I really highly recommend choosing a centre where they have the rotation of different practices, especially as a first step, especially if you've not done Vipassana before. Maybe at some point in the future, I would like to have that experience, to experience the version where you're seated in meditation all day, every day. I think it would be interesting to have that experience as well. But I think especially if it's your first time, maybe choosing a centre where they have the rotation and you can practice walking meditation, standing meditation. Also, if you have any physical health issues or anything like that, that might be a barrier to seated meditation all day, every day. Choosing one where they rotate through the different practices would probably be a really amazing choice for you. Ensure that you organise it and contact the centre to ensure that the dates that you want to do it on are available with plenty of time. So I was able to get onto it really quickly, and the way that I live my life is quite spontaneous. So I think I only gave a few days notice, maybe like 2 days notice to get onto it, but it was monsoon season, so that makes a difference. When it's peak season, I think that it takes longer. I feel like I asked how much notice you would need in high season, and they said it was more like 2 months. So if you go during monsoon season, you can usually start much quicker. Obviously it depends on how many people I've got, but if you're going or planning on going during peak season, you need to give a bit more notice and let them know the date that you plan on arriving. Another thing that I would encourage is ensuring that if you're going to be on your bleed or on your menstrual cycle during it, to ensure that you have enough supplies, and that you also have enough clothes to ensure that you don't have any accidents like I did. Another tip that I have is that even though it was Thailand and during the day it was really hot and humid, at night it did get quite cold, and in the mornings as well it also got quite cold. So I did at times feel a bit cold, especially at night or during the early mornings. Again, I was really grateful and blessed that somebody had kindly donated some gorgeous thick hand knitted socks, which were a real blessing and that I really enjoyed wearing to bed. And yeah, I was so grateful for the donations, but you also can't count on what donations are going to be there when you arrive. I didn't have enough stuff, and I didn't realise that until I arrived. I was very, very blessed that there were lots of donations that I could use and that I could leave some of those for the next person when I left. But yeah, just making sure that you've got enough, that you've got clothes that you're going to be comfortable in, that you've got enough white clothes. Everything is done in white. And also for women, I think also probably for men, you can't be wearing shorts or anything like that. You have to have your shoulders covered. So just ensuring that you've got the right clothing, and if you're unsure about what you need, getting in touch with them to find out. I feel like they did give a prep email and it told you what you needed in terms of clothing and things like that. It did tell you what you need to bring, but because for me I was doing it quite last minute, I didn't have a lot of time to get everything together and buy everything that I needed. So just giving yourself adequate time to be prepared. I think also being mentally prepared for how you might feel during the meditation. It really does go quite deep, and practices that are very deep like that can cause a whole range of experiences. You can have somatic releases, emotional releases. It can make you feel quite awful at times. I believe that it's all just the ways in which it brings trauma up and out of the body and releases trauma from the body. So yeah, just being prepared for that and being prepared that it is a challenge. It's not easy, but I definitely recommend it and think it was a wonderful experience. Also being prepared for the approach. So you don't really get a whole lot of guidance. There's not a lot of hand holding. If you're finding it challenging, you really are just with yourself in that experience. So I think if you're somebody who is feeling particularly vulnerable at this point in your life or finding things really tough, it could be a wonderful way for you to work through those things and support yourself. But it depends on the person, it depends on who you are and what you need. You might actually find it really quite difficult having a bit of a hands-off approach from the monks and the leaders there. I personally like that approach because I think it helps to foster self-reliance and encourages you to sit with the experiences that you're having and navigating them and moving through them yourself. I think that it's actually quite a useful thing to experience and to get used to. However, there might be people who find that extremely challenging and actually really find it tough, and maybe that type of practice isn't for you. And if that's feeling like it might be true for you, it might be better, at least to begin with, to find a meditation teacher or somebody who can tutor you online. I can do that. To work with a slower pace so that you're not kind of going really in at the deep end. I would say that yes, it's quite a in at the deep end practice and experience. So if you feel that you need a softer approach, a slower approach, if that suits you and who you are, then maybe holding off going in at the deep end and starting your meditation practice in a gentler way to begin with. If you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe. It really helps me to know that the content that I'm creating is valuable and helping people and informing people. And it helps me to create more content like this to serve you. If you want to do any one-to-one healing or have any support from me, you can find out everything I offer at lushluna.com, and I would absolutely love to work with you. And if you want to support my work, you can join the Unfolding membership. It's super accessible. It was guided by Spirit during Vipassana, and it's only £5.50 a month. You can access it in many countries and can pay in your local currency. I would love to join you on there and have your support and connect to you during a live ceremony. So thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you found some of these tips helpful. Thank you. Take care. Bye.